Hello and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. I am a woman on a mission to get you working with your Zettelkasten. Let's get real. Okay, I've been doing a bunch of episodes for people who are just getting started, and that's where my heart is. You know that. I want you to get your Zettelkasten going. But this one tonight is for people who've been at it for a while. You've been playing with those memory prompt phrases, those taglines that you're adding to the top of your card. And we're going to talk about how those taglines can give you automatically the power of spaced repetition, but way, way, way more dimensional. In fact, double the dimensionality of ordinary spaced repetition, and why that can just be a fantastic powerhouse for boosting your memory. So if you want your Zettelkasten to be a memory machine, it has absolutely the power to do that if you use your memory prompt phrase, if you use your taglines. I'm going to take a look at a card and I'm going to talk you through it. So we're going to switch over to the down-facing camera and we'll talk about why that's true. Okay, let's start out by talking about how spaced repetition works. In spaced repetition, you've got some kind of a prompt that you're delivering to yourself where you want to get a specific named response. If you get it right, good. They'll wait some more time and bring it back to you to test you again after a longer delay. If, however, you get it wrong, it'll bring it back to you quite soon so you can try again. And you just continue through this loop. Here's what it looks like pictorially. Here you are. Short time, you got it. Another little bit longer time, you got it. A longer time, you got it. You missed. Oh well, go back to the beginning. Just a short time, you got it, etc. What's the finish line? The finish line comes in when you can reliably deliver the desired response to the chosen prompt, and that is your finish line. You're going to have to wait and wait and wait till it's done, and the bottom line is what you've got is just flat and dead. You can count on being able to be a little puppet. You give the response, return the prompt. Give the response, return the prompt. Totally reliably. Bravo. Now let's take a look at what happens with your memory prompt phrase and how that, right off the bat, can function as a spaced repetition. Or at least how it does in my world, and you can do it the same. Okay. I'm going to assume that by now you are all following this basic format for your main cards. You get some information from your source and you express it as well as you possibly can, pulling from the general argument, that the discussion that author is putting forward, his thesis, his proposition. You react to it with your own feelings, your own thoughts, your own information, so that you bring some of yourself. Now you've got a dialogue. You capture where it came from, of course, on your source. And then your next step, you want to capture this dialogue into a memory prompt phrase, also known as a tagline. Tagline is faster to say, so I very often just call it a tagline. But the purpose of it is to bring back the dialogue that took place on this card. When you read that memory prompt phrase in an ideal world, you'll remember what the information was from the author and what your response was to it. The whole card should come back to you. Then, how do you get a spaced repetition into this? For me, I create my new main cards in the morning as a part of my reading. They don't yet have this number. This is where I stop. I include my memory prompt phrase, my source, all of this, but I don't yet have a number. Then in the evening, I find it incredibly energizing to figure out where this card goes into my Zettelkasten. To me, it's just the most fun that you can have with a Zettelkasten is figuring out where this new card goes, because you're going to get new associations, and those new associations give you a pop of energy. But it also for me, gives me an opportunity to test out my memory prompt phrase. I've gone morning to night. Does my memory prompt phrase bring back the whole card for me? Yes or no? If it does, great. I'm going to go ahead and do my indexing. If it doesn't, I'm going to drill right now by rereading the card. And I'll re-drill it a couple of times till I can cover up the card, the memory prompt phrase, and yes, I can bring back the entire card. So that was a good size space. Now that I'm ready I have the card number, I'm going to be taking every keyword in this memory prompt phrase and putting those into my index with the entire memory prompt phrase. So I'm going to drill, 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 drill. If I take the time and trouble every time I write one of those out to stop and bring back the entire card, then I'm getting one of those short space repetitions that happens when you make a mistake on the card. You drill it quickly, 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 more than you would in a space repetition, but that's the name of the game. Now, where does the rest of the spacing come in? Where do you get the long gaps? The answer to that is they come about accidentally. Of course, when you're dealing with spaced repetition, you're working with an algorithm. And that algorithm knows how much time to leave after you've gotten it right and exactly how much time to leave if you've missed one. So it's all planned out. In your Zettelkasten, there's no advanced planning of that sort. But of course, it does happen. And it happens in two ways. It happens when you're indexing a new card. When a new card is coming in and the new card, this is a brand new card now, doesn't have its number yet, and it wants to find where does this card go into your system. You're going to bump into that first card. And if you're a very careful Zettelkastener, if that connection is close, if you say, that might be my parent, then yes, you're going to drill and make sure that you can pull the whole card back from that memory prompt phrase. So now you've just had a nice space repetition. How long? Can't say how long. But as your Zettelkasten grows and your index grows, the number of occurrences are going to quite naturally get longer and longer. That's going to come about because of the physical geography of your Zettelkasten. You've got more cards, so any given card is further apart, including your index entries. But there's a second way that's even more fun. And this happens when you go to file a card. And in fact, that's what gave me the topic today. Okay, so here that goes. I had this card out from a previous podcast a while back, and I put it in my filing section. I have a nice little section of cards that need to be put back. Just a little thing, what has to go back into my Zettelkasten. And I didn't have very many that had to go back, and I neglected to do my filing for a number of days. So today was the day, okay, I got to catch up that filing. And so now this card has to go into my Zettelkasten where it belongs. I had determined where it went with the podcast and with you guys a few days ago. So now, in the process of putting this card away, I bump into this card. Well, this card is the parent to this card, so of course I saw this card when I first gave this card a number, because I had to read through this card to decide that, yes, this card wants to be right after this card. So that was a very recent time that I reviewed this card. But I had to put this card in between two cards. And that means that I didn't have to, but I couldn't resist reviewing this card as well, the card that comes right after this one, because it has a rather interesting memory prompt phrase. A Zettelkasten web of understanding versus SR point. SR point? What did that mean? Oh, guess what? No, fail. Could not reproduce entire card, fail. All right, here's the entire card. What is the card? Space repetition is not good for relating multiple things together. Oh, SR was space repetition. But if you want to create a web of understanding, that's precisely what a Zettelkasten is good for. If we aren't letting that web form, we're missing the point. All right, now isn't that phenomenal that the card that I needed to use space repetition on, because I didn't remember what SR point was all about, was about space repetition. Isn't that just amazing? I mean, it's just exhilarating. I don't know. I get a kick out of stuff like that. So, of course, I made this card and made this a topic for my talk tonight because it was just such an incredible, delightful coincidence. Now, what about those extra dimensions that I promised? See this word point? What did point mean? And when you look in here, well, they're talking about a web. Well, a web is kind of the opposite of a point. Well, in fact, between getting to a point to a web, you got a line in there. There's a point, there's a line, and then you get a web. So a point is like one-dimensional. A line is two-dimensional. Web is three-dimensional. Okay, now, what did I mean by point? Well, I didn't want to lose the thing, so I grabbed a little note card and I jotted something down as it was forming in my brain so I wouldn't lose it. And what I did was I stuck it right here and I put SPR arrow, because for me, if I don't get a thought down within 30 seconds max, maybe 5 seconds, it's gone. And then I lose it. So I grabbed for it quickly and I said that the space repetition is one-dimensional versus two-dimensional for the Zettelkasten. And how did I come to the idea that it was one-dimensional? Well, you've got a stimulus and a response. Stimulus is a drill. You're drilling one data point. Can you deliver the response? That's one data point being delivered. That's all that the entire theory, all the algorithm, all the agony, all the repetition gives you one data point. That to me is flat and dead. Now compare what just happened, filing a main card. This is just putting away. This is just doing my evening chore, doing my filing. And look at the space repetition that I got out of this card. I got to be reminded about this amazing card from Zettelkasten, one of these really wonderful cards. I know this is an old card because it's a 3x5 card, and my cards are now all 4x6. It kind of sort of has a memory prompt phrase down here: focus, what connects, what conditions, how's coordinated. But the closest thing it has to my response is this little thing here. A Zettelkasten is about making connections. So I guess that is my response, but it wasn't fully developed at that time the way I do it now. I did not fully develop, in a fully developed fashion, have this idea of how a main card must go. But it's close. And I got to review this beautiful thing where Zettelkasten says, and it's a quote, I've got quotations around it: look always for what connects this thing with that. What conditions are necessary for this and for that? Then let the coordination and not the scattered fragments fix itself in your memory. We're back to memory again. What is going to fix itself into the memory? The coordination, the ideas, the web of information that's developing. It's the beauty of it. And then I also had a little note there: learning. Memory and learning, of course. And that's what tied these two cards together before this one came along and butted in between them, saying, I want to be this card's child. But look at the dimensionality that you've got here. You've got the dimension of conditioning and coordinating information. You're getting the real implications of the information, and you're coordinating that with this concept of semantic priming, which we went over the other day, and coordinating that with the idea of space repetition for cementing your memory. Yes, you have a space repetition there, but what you're getting when you're done, you're not getting one response to one prompt, flat and dead. You're getting that very web of information that a Zettelkasten is capable of delivering. So I hope you see how in space repetition, every repetition drills one and only one point. Every space repetition, although they're random and they're not deterministic, in a Zettelkasten give you always a 3D, not even just a 2D, because you're always taking your new card and placing it in between two other cards in your Zettelkasten. So you're getting 3 different cards interacting every time you place that card back. And even when you're doing an index search, you're always at least in 2D, because you've got your new card that you're looking for where it goes, and you're examining those memory prompt phrases from the existing ones that are in your Zettelkasten, and each one of those is 2D. So you're just getting all kinds of information brushed up and polished in your brain every time you use a Zettelkasten. And every time you do that, every time you bring a card back to memory that you loved when you made that card, a card that made you excited when you created it, that pop of energy comes right back, and it just is so rewarding and it's so energizing. That's why I'm 76 going on 77. Next month I'll turn 77 years old. I started the Zettelkasten when I was 75, and I will tell you that I have more energy now than I had when I started it, and I probably have more energy now than I had at age 70. It's because the Zettelkasten pays you back in energy, way more energy than it takes from you to give it. Because if you want to know the real source of energy in your body, it's your brain. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.